In this episode, please keep your ears peeled for the discount code to my teachable course, How to Podcast Better Than Anyone. William Arlin Bynum, Arlin to those who knew him best, was a 40-year-old from Big Spring, Texas. He was a sharp dresser and loved motorcycles. On August 14th, 2003, Arlin went to a local bar where he stayed past midnight. Arlin's truck was found in the parking lot later that day. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. As the host of Unfound, I really try not to allow guests to tell unsubstantiated stories during interviews. My experience tells me this is very much in contrast to other true crime podcasts and shows that are in your listening rotations. Why do I make this choice? 3 reasons mainly. Number 1, telling stories with no facts can lead to defamation charges. Number 2, you are all capable of coming up with your own theories all on your own. And number 3, my belief is allowing people to talk about things that may not be true only causes more of the same to be created. Have there been exceptions in Unfound's history? Absolutely. But mainly because the shaky theories are so well known that they would be the elephants in the room if I didn't ask the guests about them. Some examples might be the ways Unfound featured Mara Murray, Brian Schaefer, and the Colonial Parkway murders. Well, with the disappearance of Arlin Bynum, given the circumstances, we wouldn't think his case would generate grapevine talk. But maybe the idiom is right. Maybe rumor has it. And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. But do note, Arlin's disappearance is not on NamUs. Arlin Bynum was the youngest of the children, and he was treated as such. Even his closest friend described him as a mama's boy. Even when Arlin's mother remarried, he lived with her until he was 39 years old, with the irony being that she eventually asked Arlin to leave. That's how he ended up in Big Spring, Texas in 2002, where other family lived. Arlin had his problems, though. He liked to drink a little too much, leading to several DUI charges. In addition, Arlin had a drug addiction that caused him to congregate with desperate, dangerous people. And at the time of his disappearance, there were no signs that any of this would change. So, on August 14th, 2003, Arlin went to the San Franciscan bar in Big Spring. It had a shady reputation, but Arlin had been there many times since moving to town. According to witnesses, there was nothing unusual about that night and into the next early morning. However, although many people admitted seeing Arlin there, nobody claimed to have seen him leave. Later that day of August 15th, Arlin's brother drove by the bar and just happened to see Arlin's truck still in the parking lot. Arlin was never seen again. Investigators questioned many people, but the stories went nowhere. One of the toughest jobs I have, being a true crime podcaster, is deciding what can and cannot be covered in an interview when there are so many rumors out there. Contemplate how you would go about making those kinds of decisions as you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, was Arlin's disappearance a hate crime? Number 2, how much are you concerned that someone close to Arlin could not give a verified alibi? And number 3, is a local man soiling himself during a police interview about Arlin's case enough to think that he and others caused the disappearance? Arlin's family is convinced that foul play occurred. The guests for this episode are Arlin's sisters, Lori McCampbell and Cindy Sturdisant. Unfound News. For all the Patreon and YouTube supporters out there, I've picked out the next person for the monthly series Found. I will examine from disappearance to discovery the mystery of Kimberly McLean, a.k.a. Lori Ruff. Next, a missing persons project I last conducted in 2018 may be coming back for 2024. I will keep you posted if it comes to fruition. Finally, I'm running another promotion at howtopodcast.teachable.com/courses. Use the following code UNFOUND202023 before October 25th to get 50% off either the course or the coaching. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your coworkers. A note before the interview starts. Even though the names of the suspects were in the interview outline and they were used in the interview, after I made the decision to mute them from the recording due to some of Arlin's family and the suspects still living in the same area, with those family members still fearing retribution from these people who might have had something to do with Arlin's disappearance. Please realize, though, that there is no evidence that the people who were muted out had anything to do with this case. However, if you look hard enough, you will find the names on the internet. And yes, they are surely shady people. There's further explanation for this within the interview itself. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the sisters of Arlin Bynum, Cindy Sturdisant, and Lori McCampbell. Lori and Cindy, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's start here. Now, before we get too far into this, we have to, of course, his official, Arlin's official name is William Arlin Bynum, but he went by Arlin. Maybe you want to, maybe one of you want to explain why he went, I guess, by his middle name and not his first name. How did that start? Cindy or Lori, which one of you would like to answer that?
Don't know. It's like that's how he was always known by. He was named after our father, who's W.A. W.A. didn't stand for anything.
Huh.
And, well, that's because he had two grandparents. One was William Alfonso and one was William Alexander. And so, and then Arlen was named after Daddy. And he was just always called Arlen.
Huh. Okay. Arlen, just since he was a little kid, always Arlen. Always. And do you even know where the name Arlen comes from?
We had a uncle named Arliss.
Arliss.
I'm A-R-L-I-S. I'm thinking it came. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Of course, William's a very, very common name even to this day, but Arlen, fairly rare. And that's what he went by. All right, so if anybody's wondering, well, I thought his first name was William. What is? But in his everyday life, he went by Arlen. That's how we will refer to him for this interview. Of course, you are his sisters. How many siblings does Arlen have? And maybe you want to talk about all of you growing up together. Where was this? Was this in Texas? I know that maybe you have some connections to Arkansas and elsewhere. What can you say about that? Either one of you.
Okay. There was four of us. Cindy's the oldest, then me, Lori, Cecil, and then Arlen was the baby. Mother divorced Daddy, and the three oldest were left with Daddy at the farm, and Mother took Arlin with her. And then she ended up marrying another fellow in the Air Force and lived pretty much all over the country. Little Rock, Albuquerque, I believe. Then when she went to Papa Tom, they were in Hawaii, Guam, and back to Hawaii, and Montgomery, Alabama for a short time. All this military bases, and then Abilene, Texas. The rest of us grew up in West Texas, Big Spring, attended school there. All three of us graduated from Big Spring High School.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So Arlin, growing up, got to live, you're saying he was in Hawaii, Guam, and all of that?
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's fascinating.
How did lived in Hawaii and Guam for a while, too.
Wow, okay.
So,
okay. Well, that's...
Literally, Arlin was raised almost as an only child with Mother and Tom.
Yeah.
And we did not get to see him very often. Obviously, for obvious reasons. I mean, it's a long way from Guam to West Texas or Hawaii to West Texas.
You're right. Good point. Right. When maybe I should ask you this: when did you start seeing a lot more of him? If he was with your mother, you're with your father. When did all of you start seeing much more of each other? What time in your lives?
Whenever Mother and Papa Tom, his final posting was at Diet Air Force Base in Abilene.
Okay.
Texas, and Abilene's 100 miles from Big Spring, and that's when he really became a regular, consistent part of our life.
Okay. And I bet that was good for both of you, right? I mean, after not seeing him for so long, it was good to kind of like get to know him again.
Right. Now, all the three oldest, we were already out of high school, but Arlin was still in high school at Abilene High.
Okay. And we have to remember that he was 40 years old when he went missing, correct?
40, yes.
Yes. So both of you got to see, I guess, and interact quite a bit with him over those next 20-some years before he went missing.
Yes.
Okay, very good. What is maybe just, I don't, we don't require too much complex math on this podcast. But what is the age difference between all of you? Well, we don't have to give up anybody's ages, but like the ages from oldest to youngest, and you said he was the baby. What's the age spread on your family?
This is Cindy, and Arlin was 6 years younger than me. He was 4 years younger than Lori, 2 years younger than Cecil.
All right. Okay. And and everybody should know. Is Cecil still with us?
That he is your stereotypical Texan, very stoic. Does not discuss any of this.
Oh, okay. All right, but he is still with us. But I just want the listeners to know that I've not spoken to him. You are the siblings I've spoken to, but there is another brother, and he is still alive, but I've not spoken to him. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about Arlin. Like you've already stated, you weren't maybe around him a lot growing up until he got into his teens, being that your parents were divorced. But once you got to be around him again, got to talk to him and got to see him, what can you say about his his personality? What were his interests? What are some of those things that made Arlin Arlin?
He was happy-go-lucky. He was in love with anything that was beautiful and good. Arlin was a Pisces. And if you are familiar with astrology, Pisces can be two different people. They can have one facade of I'm a happy-go-lucky person and then hide demons. And Arlin had those traits.
Okay, all right. He was a stereotypical Pisces. Now, Pisces, of course, is what? Late February into March, right?
Correct. His birthday was in March.
His birthday.
Early March.
Okay, in March. So he was born in March. The only reason I remember that is I have a very, very close friend of mine who She is also a Pisces, being born on March 1st. All right, I'm a Leo. I'm not a big believer in astrology necessarily, but people have told me I am your stereotypical Leo, so maybe there is something to it. Okay. What was he into? Was he into music, art? Was he into cars, sports? What was he into as a young man?
He loved, I remember his first car was a Nova, and he got so mad when our brother called him the Bondo Kid because they had to put some Bondo on the car to fix it up. And he was very passionate about things. He would, just like he fell in love with the Big Bend. He was passionate about the Big Bend area of Texas. He went to this one little bar called the Blue Bonnet Inn on Lake Buchanan in Texas. And he was so passionate when he found out that they were going to demolish it to build a road or something. And, he's just like, devastated. He was just loved it, and just, he loved to dance. He loved his motorcycle. He loved his mother. He loved his mother.
Yeah, most importantly. Right. Well, and you bring up the motorcycle. I do know in his description that the day of his disappearance, he was wearing a Harley Davidson shirt. Is that what he had? Did he have a Harley Davidson motorcycle?
Yeah.
He did. Neat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. What about his education? Did he graduate high school? Did he go to college? And then we'll get into his work experience. What can you say about that for either of you?
Yeah. He got his GED the summer before he disappeared.
Wow.
He dropped out. He had already sent out, they had already sent out graduation announcements, and he quit high school like 2 weeks before he would have graduated. Now, I don't understand that. I don't understand why Mother Tom allowed that to happen. I don't know, but it was so bizarre. You remember that? I mean, he had already sent out his graduation announcement, and then he quit.
No explanation. So for the next 20 years, you never got an explanation from him on that. Never came up at a family gathering.
No, I never asked. I mean, it was what it was.
Huh? How did your mother? Your mother couldn't have been too happy about that.
He pretty much let Arlin do anything Arlin wanted to do.
Oh, okay. All right, so he was the baby of the family. Did you think he got away with more than maybe the rest of you?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Totally different upbringing. Our dad and stepmother raised us to be
responsible,
self-sufficient, independent, and Mother and Tom raised Arlin to be dependent on them.
Oh, did he? Did they?
He lived with them his whole life until he moved to Big Springs.
Okay.
When he never lived by himself until he moved to Big Springs.
Never suffered any negative consequences, no matter what his actions were.
I see. Well, you're going to have to then, if you're going to say that, you need to give us a little bit of a timeline there. So when you say that he lived with your mother until he moved to Big Spring, I mean, what year or what age are we talking here as far as him living?
39. He was 39 years old when he moved to Big Spring.
Wow.
And now he did at one time live with a couple of roommates in Austin, but it wasn't for very long. But again, when I say he never lived by himself, he had never lived by himself until he moved to Big Spring.
Okay. Did you ever talk to him about that? And I guess he never showed any aspirations of moving out on his own earlier, or was this? I have to ask, and everybody should know that your mother just died here within the last couple of weeks. We're doing this interview on October 7th, 2023, and of course,
he died October 1st, 2023.
October 1st. So just within this past week is when she died. And so I know that still weighs very heavily on your hearts, and having lost a mother myself, I know what that's like. But are you saying that your mother just allowed him to stay with her, or was there kind of a controlling thing going on, or what would you say about him, getting into his 30s and still living at home?
Yes to all the above. She was an enabler. She had expectations that for him that she expected him to meet, and it was never to get out on your own. It was to be there with her.
Okay.
For example, every friend that Arlen had, be it a female friend or a male friend, mother became their best friend. Okay? Does that do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Arlen didn't have friends that mother didn't take over, basically, yes.
Okay. All right.
He really had no skills to live on his own.
Okay. And where was this? And you said he moved. We're going to, of course, talk eventually about where he disappeared in Big Spring, Texas. But where did they all live together?
Okay, they left Abilene and retired to, first they went to Liberty Hill, Texas, and then they moved into Austin. Mm. And then my stepfather, Tom Hartford, took a job with the state of Florida, and they moved to Tallahassee, Florida. And Arlen, of course, moved with them.
Okay.
To Florida, and then when Papa Tom retired from Florida, they moved to Biloxi, Mississippi, and Mother wasn't ready to retire, so she was not very happy about it, but Arlen immediately quit his job with Sam's Club in Tallahassee and moved to Biloxi with Tom. There was like no questions asked, because he was, they went, he went.
Well, and let me interject that during that time in Tallahassee, Arlen was arrested at least twice for DUI.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, right?
Both times, Mother, it was, of course, the policeman's fault.
Okay.
Arlen was never.
Okay.
You said picture painting?
I do. I do. Not unusual topic here on Unfound of, sometimes we're talking about parents who enable their children. I was raised much more, it sounds more like you two were, with responsibilities and expectations and growing my independence and things. Obviously, Arlen had a different experience. But speaking of work, they're moving around. I guess he's moving with them. What kind of work was he doing?
He worked in Tallahassee for Sam's Club for like 12 years. He was a customer service rep, anything. He really was really good at it because he was very good with people, very personable.
Mm-hmm.
But see, instead of trying to transfer from Sam's Club Tallahassee to Sam's Club Gulfport, Biloxi, he just quit. And then tried to get on in Biloxi or Gulfport and couldn't get hired. You don't just quit a job without having another job lined up. Of course, that's what I've always been taught.
Okay.
So when he moved to Biloxi, he worked for a casino. I guess he didn't stay in Biloxi very long.
Okay.
Before he went to Big Spring.
Let's move on to this. We don't know. We're going to talk about this. We don't know if it was an aspect of his disappearance or not, but it may be, and that's why I'm going to bring it up. Arlen was gay. Was this something that everybody knew for a long time, or was this a recent revelation, or how do you two view it? When did you come to realize that your brother was gay?
I think I knew he was still in high school. But it's not something we ever talked about. It was just kind of, it was what it was.
Sure.
He hid it. He never fessed up about it. And there's no reason why he should have. I took him to a gay bar in Biloxi. There was just no questions asked. He worked at a gay bar in Austin. Yeah. He had girlfriends, but they were platonic.
Yeah, platonic friends, sure. All right, so this was not a new thing, within like the few years before he went missing. This is something that your family, and it seems other people knew, going way back to his teen years.
Yes.
Okay. That story not for me. I did not suspect Arlen as being gay until later.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was very appearance conscious, good looking clothes, hair always done, jewelry. I mean, he was always well groomed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Mother on his pants and shirts for him. So he looked sharp
Okay.
all the time.
And would you say that he had any? Would you say that he had a steady relationship? I mean, kind of moving around like he did, that might have been difficult. Do you even know anything about that aspect of his life? And once again, the reason we're bringing this up is that we don't usually talk about people's sexuality on this podcast, but we have to talk about this because this could be an aspect of his disappearance. Did he have any relationships, steady relationships throughout the years?
No.
No.
Well,
I believe that there was one in Tallahassee.
Okay.
It's because Mother told me how devastated Arlin was when he and something happened in his relationship and it fell apart. And so that's the guy that died of AIDS. Yes, the fella died from AIDS.
Oh no.
Yes.
Huh.
there was I think he had a relationship with a gentleman in Austin.
So there might have been at least one guy that was a steady boyfriend of his at one time, maybe in Tallahassee.
Correct.
Okay. Did Arlin ever talk to either of you, or maybe your brother Cecil, about any discrimination? Did he ever experience, what we now call hate crimes against him? Any discrimination because of his sexuality? Ever have any problems with any people because of his sexuality that you two know about?
That's our knowledge.
No?
No.
No? Never mentioned anything.
Not to me. As a matter of fact, the subject of his being gay was never discussed between Arlin and I.
Okay.
So,
I do know that Arlin went to a concert in Tallahassee with Mother, and there were some young ladies, and Arlin introduced Mother to them, and one of the young ladies said, "You must be gay if you're at a concert with your mother." Mother told me that because she and Arlin were both offended by it. So, but the girl pegged him. I mean, what 30-year-old goes to a concert with their mother?
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
that's
I think a lot of, I'm guessing that a lot of men take their mothers to concerts, especially if their mother is into the particular music, and they don't have to be gay to do that. So that's pretty rude what that woman said.
they were very offended.
Very, of course. Now, granted, it very well may be that your mother, protected Arlin a little bit, doing too much for him and everything else. But there's certainly nothing wrong with a guy going to a concert with his mother. Certainly not.
You're right. You're
Okay.
exactly right.
All right. So let's move on to now. We're going to just talk about some issues that may play a role in this disappearance. And the first big one, not to make a pun here, but he moved to Big Spring, Texas, but he moved there by himself, which, as you've already explained, is very different from how he had been living his life, living with your mother, going from place to place. He decided to move to Big Spring, Texas, all on his own. What do you think brought that up? What was the big change?
I believe that Arlin, because of the DUI, could not get a driver's license in Mississippi. So he was a burden at that point on Mother and our stepfather. And in Texas, he could get a driver's license.
Okay.
So he was looking to get to Texas so he could get a driver's license and get a job.
Okay.
And his siblings lived in Big Spring, or at least part of it did, and he wanted to take the plunge, I guess.
Okay. So I just have to ask then, are you saying that he moved from Mississippi to Texas because he had this problem with the law and was trying to avoid it? No.
It's a matter that he just could not get a driver's license in the state of Mississippi because of his DUI history.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Never involved. Mother made the decision for him to move to Big Spring. He didn't make the decision.
Huh. Well, that is interesting. Being that, she was with him this whole time. She was the one who suggested he go to Big Spring then.
Let me give a little backstory. She and Tom had retired.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to Biloxi. They had made new friends and new relationships, and they were loving life. Motorcycle clubs, riding, cruises, and I guess maybe they finally realized it was time for Arlin to grow up and go on.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of places that they could have sent him besides Big Spring, because you put a gay man in that redneck town, and the consequences, the results are exactly what we got.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it was actually your mother who suggested he go to Big Spring, and it very well may be that at some point he, they wanted to have the freedom, and Arlin was getting in the way of that.
More or less. That's
Okay.
how harsh you said it. That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
They didn't want to be driving him around everywhere.
Okay. I can understand that. So what went on in Big Spring? So he moves there. Does he get a job? Who does he live with? What goes on? And maybe we need to tell everybody, what year was this that he went to Big Spring, Texas, moved back to there, and what did he do there before he went missing?
He moved in 2002,
and he lived with my husband and I in Big Spring. He kicked around and didn't have a job for a while. Okay. And then finally he went to work for a liquor store, and that lasted. He did menial jobs. Let's just put it that way. He clerked at a mini mart, convenience store. He did put in an application at the Big Spring State Hospital and was hired. And when they did a background check, the lady that was over Human Resources, husband was a police officer. Well, Arlin had some closed files out of Austin where he had some run-in with the law, just a kid, basically.
Okay.
But he did not put that on the application. Well, she had her police officer investigate him, and she orchestrated it that he couldn't be hired at the state hospital because he lied in his application.
Oh, my goodness.
And now that I think about it, Ed, I think that was discrimination against him because he was gay.
Okay, so you don't think it had anything to do with his prior charges at all. You think it had to do with his sexuality.
Because this woman was, one of those church ladies.
All right, going back to Dana Carvey's skit on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
So he had problems there, but how was it? I have to ask, being that he was living with you, how was that going? How did that go?
Well, we had to ask him to move out because of he had some drug issues.
Yeah,
and we had to keep that home, so we could have him dragging his friends in and all that good stuff. So he did finally get himself an apartment, and I think at that time when we saw the downward spiral.
All right, maybe starting to see a little bit more of the real Arlin, like the I guess what we might call the everyday Arlin.
The demonized Arlin.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just move on to that then. Is this the first time you two knew that he was into drugs, or was this something that you were aware of before? How did that affect both of you when you found out about that?
Oh, he had been, ever since Abilene High School, smoking marijuana, and then one of his best friends in Austin, who was his lifelong friend, Melody. You met Melody. He knows. He knows. That's how he knows. But you're not use her name, but there was a lot of cocaine going around in Austin.
Okay.
And that was in the 80s. Yeah, there's a lot of cocaine going around.
All right.
So
he loved to drink his whiskey. Hunter didn't die of alcohol poisoning.
He damn near killed me of alcohol poisoning one time in New Orleans. We were drinking beer and doing shots of Crown, and I swear I came inches from dying of alcohol poisoning. I won't do a shot for this day because of that. But
okay.
But yeah, he loved to have a good time. He loved to party. Did he do more than? Did he get into crack or meth? I don't know. Cindy's shaking her head no. We don't know.
Okay.
But there was the marijuana, and in Austin there was the coke.
And do you think, all right, so speaking of going back to where he went missing from Big Spring, Texas, so you think that he was doing drugs once he moved to Big Spring as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. And I just want to maybe clarify this. So he's living with you. He has these drug issues. I guess you asked him or forced him to move out. I don't think anybody holds that against you. What was his living situation at the time of his disappearance? Who did he find? Did he find somebody that he knew to live with? Did he find new people to live with? What was it?
He had an apartment in Big Spring. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. It was a nice little apartment on Scurry Street. The month he went missing, August of '03, I was out there, and I paid his rent, and I paid his truck note, because he didn't have a good job, didn't have a steady job, and he was broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have just given him some money, too, but I didn't. I thought paying his rent and paying his truck note was, above and beyond my obligations anyway. But
right.
I loved him.
Right. He's a grown man. He's not your child or anything. He's not 15. Right.
Right. But then Mother and Tom came up there later that month. He begged her for money, and he begged her to let him come back to Biloxi, and she refused both. And that was a lot of her guilt.
Right.
That contributed to broken heart syndrome. Because she said, we talked about this not that long ago, that she should have let him. I said, Mother, woulda, shoulda, coulda. His number was up.
Right. Okay.
It was his time. There's nothing that you could have done different.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Regarding Big Spring, Texas, did he he moved there in 2002? Did he have a relationship? I had been told that there might have been a guy in the military. We don't have to once again get into any names, but did he have a guy who was in the military that he might have had a relationship with once he moved to Big Spring, Texas? For either of you.
And I don't know where you got that information. I have never heard anything about a guy in the military other than they went four-wheeling one day. That's the only thing I ever heard.
All right.
That.
Where that comes from, I can answer that. Where that comes from is that, of course, the person that, Lori, you put me in contact with, the original investigator, and the listeners should know I got to talk to this guy some weeks ago. He was the one who brought that up. And he even gave me a name of this person. Of course, we're not going to put this person's name out there, but he was the one who told me this.
Well, with that said, Arlin had that life that we didn't know about.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back. He had two personalities. He had his nightlife,
yeah,
and then he had his daytime life. But who knows what kind of relationships he had after hours? I don't know.
Okay.
And I would.
But if you're going to ask me where I got that information, that's who it comes from. And I know you're in contact with them, the original investigator, who was very kind. I mean, was to talk for 45 minutes or something. He gave me some insight, his own insight into this. But that's where it came from. All right, just so you know. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So we're not just sure about this. The investigator says this, but obviously you, his sister's not as sure about that. Let's move on to this. I'm just gonna name these people because their names are gonna be coming up. I just want to know if either of you had ever heard of any of these people before Arlin went missing. I'm just gonna name them off. This is the point in the interview where the names of the suspects were first mentioned and listed. From now on, during the rest of this interview, when you hear the volume go down and then come back, that is not a problem with the recording. That is where I, Lori, or Cindy mentioned one of the names, and I deleted it. I now take you back to the interview about a minute later, where Cindy and Lori say they had never heard of these people before Arlin went missing. Neither of you had ever heard of any of these people before Arlin went missing.
So we have never heard of these people.
Oh, okay. All right. And I just want to bring them up because we're going to be talking about them later, and I don't just want to bring them out of the blue. Just some questions before we get into the understanding of August 15th, 2003. How was your family feeling about Arlin? I guess we already got kind of that feeling. He's wanting to move back to live with your mother. Obviously, he did express maybe some regrets about moving to Texas. But overall, how was your family feeling about Arlin in August of 2003, about his current situation, about his future, etc.?
Gosh, I mean, like I told you, I paid his bills for him,
Yeah.
and I went home to Biloxi and didn't think anything more about it.
And I was not happy. I was frustrated with him because we would make a lunch date, and then he couldn't make it because he was so hungover, unable to participate in daylight time activities.
Yeah.
And evenings go around, he would rest back up and spend his evenings doing whatever he did, evenings and nights. I was very frustrated with him.
Okay. All right. So not my opinion. Of course, I did not know Arlin, but just doesn't seem like there was a lot of positive things going on in his life at that time. Is that how you would also stay? I mean, a lot of his own making, but is that how would you explain? How would you describe it?
Sir, I would describe it that way.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. August 15th, 2003. What officially, of course, on the record public story, what can either of you say? What do you know about his movements, his actions that day? For example, did either of you talk to him that day, or maybe you talked to him the day before? What do we know about his movements and who he talked to on August 15th, 2003?
He was gone. He disappeared. He went missing the night of August 14th, the morning of August 15th. So
Okay.
August.
Yeah, August 14th. Then let's talk about August 14th. What can you say about August 14th? Who he talked to that day? Did he see anybody? I know this bar, the San Franciscan. What can you say about that?
I didn't see him during the daytime. He had a part-time job at the Eagles Club there in Big Spring. He was working as a bartender. My husband and I went in there that evening, visited with Arlin. He was on the high side at that point, and we made plans to go to lunch the next day. Said goodbye, the last we saw of him. After that, he took off early, according to the other bartender. He took off early and went down to San Francisco and was right there, and that's all I know.
Okay.
And that's how abrupt it was.
Okay. Since you live there in the area, San Franciscan, what kind of reputation does it have as a bar? What kind of place is this?
It was a drug den.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
We wouldn't go in it. because it was just too rough, and it had a reputation as a drug den.
Mm-hmm. All right, so all the locals knew this, and surely Arlin knew this. Would you say this is not the first time Arlin had gone to the San Franciscan?
No, it was not the first time he'd gone to San Francisco.
Okay, all right, so he was known there. All right, and once again, I realize you two weren't there, but from the stories that you've heard, was he interacting with anybody there? Did he meet friends there? Was he hanging out with anybody? Was he just drinking at the bar alone? What was he doing?
No, Arlen never drank at the bar alone. Arlen was there. He had to have had some acquaintances as often as he was in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you names. I couldn't tell you anything.
Okay. So, and we'll come back to maybe some other people who were there a little later. So he goes to this bar, and is there a story that people saw him sitting outside the bar by himself later that night? Just by himself? I don't know. I'm just, as an example, maybe waiting for a ride or something. Was he sitting outside the bar by himself the last time people saw him?
He was sitting on the curb smoking a cigarette. He wasn't waiting on a ride because his pickup truck was parked right across the street.
Okay. All right. His truck, and we'll get back to his truck. So, in a bit. So he didn't need a ride, but he's sitting outside. One of the stories that's out there, he's sitting by himself outside the bar. And as far as the solidest story we can talk about, that is the last sighting of him.
We understand, yes.
Okay, very good. So so we now move into August 15th. When does it become a concern? One of you had already said that you were supposed to meet him for lunch the next day. When did it become a concern that something wasn't right, that he was missing? Was he supposed to call somebody, supposed to meet somebody? When did the flag start flying that something wasn't right?
My brother's people called me late morning, wanted to know if I'd heard anything from Arlen. And I said, no, why? He said, well, his truck has been sitting in front of the San Franciscan all morning. So we started trying to get hold of him. And he always had his phone. Always.
Right.
And we never reached him. And I guess we talked to the police that afternoon. I can't really remember the time frame. People took care of all of that stuff. But yeah, pretty rapidly we realized that something was amiss.
How did Cecil find out that the truck was outside? Did somebody call him, or how did he know that the truck was there?
Well, Big Spring is a pretty small town. I think you have to drive by San Francisco if you're going anywhere east or west in Big Spring. So Cecil drove by and saw it a couple of times.
Okay. All right, so he drove by, sees his brother's truck, and it's there. It's in the morning. Of course, that's going to be a little suspicious, and that's how this all got started. Did anybody go over to Arlen's where he was living? Of course, you tried calling him. He didn't pick up. Did anybody try to go over to where he was living, check to see if he was there? What did all of you do? I guess what I'm asking is, what did all of you do before the police got involved?
Well, Cecil, I believe, did go over by his apartment, and there was nothing. I had gone on to work.
Okay.
So, kind of, cruising through the day, I figured he'd turn up. So.
Right. Okay, so of course he's not in his apartment. And when does who was it, and when was it done? Who filed the missing persons report for Arlen?
It was Cecil. And I don't know if it was that 15th or the 16th.
All right, so fairly quickly then. Pretty quickly then.
Yes.
All right. So you didn't, and you should know, a lot of times reports don't get filed for many days, weeks, even months. But this one filed fairly quickly because you did not know where he was. His truck's is still at the San Franciscan, the bar that he was at the night before. And what do the police do? Did they, for example, did they go talk to people at the bar? Did they get into his apartment to look around there? What is your knowledge as to what the police did to, at least initially?
Yes, they did gain access to his apartment. They went through it, did, their crime scene stuff. Of course, nothing was there because he never went back to his apartment.
Okay.
And if they went into San Francisco, I do not have knowledge of that. I would assume they did, but Detective Ryder was on the case, and of course he has since retired and passed away. He would be, and then supposedly the file's missing. I mean, we don't know. The Big Spring Police. Don Williams, the Texas Ranger, is your best source in the talk to.
Right. That's the guy that I spoke to some weeks ago. And he did give me some details about these people. Eventually, we're going to talk about him talking to at least some of them. All right, so as far as local police, it doesn't sound like a ton was done, and I agree with you. It does sound to me that this Texas Ranger, Don Williams, was the guy who seemed to do a lot of this work, and I guess you're in contact with him since you're the one who gave me his phone number in the first place. So, of course, this is 20 years ago. He is now retired. All right, let's move on to some of these things. Regarding the truck, what happened to the truck? Did they do any forensics on it? Who ended up getting the truck? What do you know about that?
Okay, the truck ended up going back to Mother and Tom to Biloxi, and then Mother more or less sold it, gave it to our nephew, Austin Cecil's son.
Okay. Do you know, since the truck was there, but to your knowledge, are the keys missing? Was it locked?
I discussed that with Brother Cecil and Teresa, and somehow or another they got keys to it. It wasn't broke into. I mean, we didn't have to break. Family did not have to break into it. Maybe Mother brought the keys when they came to Big Spring from Biloxi after he went missing. I don't know.
Okay. All right, and of course we know dealerships, if you give them like the VIN or something, they can cut keys or make keys. So, especially maybe not these days, maybe not 20 years later, because everything's so electronic now. But at the time, they might have the ability to cut a key or something. Maybe that's a possibility as well. But nothing, to your knowledge, nothing unusual about the truck.
Yeah.
Nothing. All right. All we know is it was still parked at the bar the next day until it was taken away. What about the phone records? Do you know anything about Arlin's phone records? Anybody able to get them? Do we have any idea if he talked to anybody on the phone or texted anybody while he was at the bar? Do we have any ping information? Know anything about that?
No, Mother knew something, but we can't ask her, obviously. The police checked the phone records.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. All right. It just doesn't sound to me. I guess the impression you're giving me is they didn't really lead anywhere.
Right.
Okay. All right. As far as witnesses go, we are kind of already talked about this, but I want to ask you about this again. And I did ask this specific question to Don Williams. I'll get into that in a moment. But did anybody actually see him, to your knowledge, get into a vehicle with anybody or walk away? Did anybody see that at all? Or was the most reliable statement that he was sitting outside that bar and that's it?
That's That's all we know.
That's all we know. Okay. All right. Because in talking to Don Williams, and we're going to talk about these people that we mentioned earlier, in questioning all these people that he did, he could never find a witness, like you're saying. He himself said, could not find a witness that ever saw Arlin get into a vehicle with anybody. Despite, at least anybody that would, nobody would admit to it. Okay. What about people who you trust? Not some of these other people we're eventually going to talk about, but were there any of Arlin's acquaintances, friends who you trust, who could say anything, who ever said anything to you, even at any time in the past 20 years, about his disappearance? What did they say? What were their reactions to him going missing?
Well, everybody that you knew and cared about Arlen was devastated, but nobody knows anything. I mean, or nobody's saying, to this day, nobody's saying anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is a story out there, I'm just calling, you see it in the outline, it's called the $17 tab story. Is this a real story? Is this kind of just folklore that has kind of popped up? Did he have a tab that he left, or somebody else came and paid it? What do you know about this story, the $17 tab story?
This is the first we've ever heard of it.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never heard of it.
All right, let me just go over that. Let me read something to you. So you've never heard that story before, ever?
No.
Wow.
Mother and Tom handled all the interaction with the police, and they're the ones that hired the private investigator, and they ran the investigation from the family side. So they had all the information. I know nothing.
And Ed, I want to just lay it out here. When he disappeared, and my husband and I knowing what he was into,
right?
Not knowing, was he dealing with the cartels?
Yeah.
What he was dealing with, we were scared.
Yep.
We lived in Big Spring, and we didn't know, was this a drug killing? Were they going to come after us next? We were, and I basically just stepped back. I didn't want my kids out there. I didn't want our names out there.
And that's how brother and his family felt also.
All right, so what you're saying is because of knowing the way he was and the choices that he made and things, you just really did not want to get involved that much because there was a fear that all of you had.
Right. And we didn't know anything anyway.
Right.
Now, there's been some information that's come up during this 20-year anniversary thing, that there has been some speculation that he was either a mule or running drugs for a cartel out of Acuña, Mexico. And it makes sense to me because in March of 2003, my husband's birthday, a bunch of us from Big Spring went down to Acuña and celebrated his birthday. On the ride home, he was with one of my girlfriends, and she said he was beside himself and couldn't settle down. So, looking back, I'm wondering if he didn't make a connection down there, and we've gotten rumors that it was the cartel.
Okay. All right. Well, we try to stay away from rumors on Unfound.
Yeah.
Okay. We try to stay away from that. I want to come back to this $17 bar tab. This is in multiple locations. If you don't know, I'm just going to read one of these writings that are out there. Once again, I realize you haven't heard of this. I'm just going to read it. It just said, Arlin was last seen by witnesses leaving the bar and grill, accompanied by an unidentified man after signing a $17 tab. This is something that you've not heard before.
Right. I mean, I've heard the unidentified man, but that speculation is they just happen to be walking out at the same time.
Okay.
Not necessarily together. Another room. Yeah, another room.
Okay.
For staying away from.
Yeah. All right. So we don't know. So I guess what we're saying is the $17 bar tab story is in multiple locations, but there's no proof that it's fact.
I don't understand the significance of it.
I think what they're saying is, I think the significance may be to some people. I don't know what to think. But it's out there, and and I have to ask you about it. Well, he was with a guy, and they left together, but there are stories that contradict that, just saying that Arlin was outside by himself.
Right.
Okay. All right. And I don't know what to make of the $17 tab. Like I said, if it's going to be something, if it was just like some on Reddit or someplace, I would never bring it up. But in multiple places, articles, I've seen it written, and so that's why I'm asking you about it. But you two, not sure what to think about it, have never heard of it, so that leads me to believe maybe this is just something made up. Of course, 20 years old, disappearance, a lot of things come up that aren't true. People start talking. Let's now move on to this. Already kind of mentioned these people, but when did his name? I understand you were kind of keeping your distance because of some of the stuff that Arlin was involved in. When did you first hear his name as a possibility as being connected to Arlin's disappearance?
Began their investigation. This is Lori. I didn't hear it until much later because of course I lived in Biloxi. But again, a rumor. It's believed that Arlin and your man were in a relationship. Didn't want it known because of the redneck mentality of Big Spring.
All right, so it might have been a guy who, I guess as the saying goes, it was in the closet, but he and Arlin might have had something going on, and he didn't want anybody to know about it.
Right. I also understand or heard, again, I don't know what's true and what's not, that Arlin was in the San Francisco city with his mother that night.
Right. And that is something that's the significance of this. And when did you, for either of you, when did you first hear that Anne's mother was actually in the bar that night and Arlin happened to be there too? I realize it's been 20 years, but do you remember?
I didn't know anything about it until I read the PI report, and I didn't even know there was a PI report until we started this Arlin 20-year anniversary. Cindy's left the room because he doesn't want to be around when we're discussing names. I don't have a problem with it, discussing names. But anyway, that's whenever I read the PI report, and that was probably in June of this year.
June of this year.
Yes.
Okay.
And because I was not involved in all that. Mother and Mom ran point on it.
Okay. All right. So there's not sure what to make of this, and I did talk to Don Williams about, and I'm not sure he knows what to think of it, of him as well. Moving on. Same story that his name did not come up until you read this PI report just a few months ago?
Yeah, I don't know any of these other people.
All right. You had never heard of any of them for both of you until the PI report came out in 2023, this year.
Right, I just read it.
Okay.
That was kind of trying to get this out to the media, trying to make something happen.
Yeah. So I guess we have to talk about this PI report right now. When was this this private investigator who worked on this? When did he work on this, or she maybe? When was this private investigator's work done?
I would say probably 2004. I didn't know they had hired a private investigator.
Oh, you didn't even know that?
No. and you read the report. It's a
I
joke.
did. A little bit. I agree. I agree with you that, I mean, the listeners know, of course, both of you are very new to knowing me, but the listeners have known me, I guess, 7 years, and they know that I don't take private investigators very seriously when it comes to missing persons investigations. So, in reading it, not much of a surprise to me, but yeah. Right.
They just took money, is what they did.
Yeah.
Psychic stuff, and oh my Lord.
Yeah, well, there is psychic stuff in it, and maybe I'll get your permission right now. Do I have permission to make this report available to the listeners and viewers?
Can we redact the names?
I don't think the way that the file's set up, I don't think that I can. We can talk about that afterwards. I'm not going to make any. I'm not. We don't need to. We can talk about this after the interview is done off the record. But the listeners should know there is a PI report. A lot of people are named. As you're hearing from Cindy and Lori, it is at least a little bit of a joke. Half the report has to do with psychics. So that maybe should tell you something. I'm not a believer in that stuff, as everybody knows, at least who listens to the podcast. But so you didn't even know that this report was done. And why did you finally why did you both finally find out about it in 2023? Was this something that your mother finally told you, or did you happen upon it? How did that happen?
She had a file box full of, all the newspaper clippings and everything. And anyway, I went through it, and that's when I, read it. And I had her permission to put it out there, but I did not know that Cindy and Landon and Cecil and Teresa had such a fear of retaliation or something from, whatever happened to Arlin, maybe the cartel or whoever did it. And Cecil and Teresa still live there and have family and grandkids there, and they really ask that names not be named because they're retribution to themselves.
Okay.
I would suggest you talk. He's still in Big Spring.
Yeah, well, I don't talk to people who I think are going to lie to me, because that only then furthers rumors and lies and everything. These, whether they had something to do, what I've learned about them in the last couple months of knowing about Lauren's disappearance and getting to know them, what Don Williams told me about them, whether they had anything to do with Arlen's disappearance or not, none of them are good people. They all have criminal records, and all of them are more than happy, even if they didn't have anything to do with Arlen's disappearance, they're more than happy to send you, me, Don Williams, and everybody else happily on wild goose chases. And I don't do that. This is the reason I don't talk to people I don't trust. I'm in the information business, but I only want information from good sources, and the rest of them would not qualify as good sources for, my work. Because I'm sure they'd tell some stories that sound totally believable, and I'm not going to get caught up in this stuff. So, there you go. All right, so you didn't hear about this report until 2023. You got to read it. You didn't think much of it. I don't think much of it. Have you, I guess, is this private investigator, do you even know if the private investigator is even still alive? Is there any way to communicate with this person now in 2023?
The name of them, I think they're out of Midland, Texas. That's all I know. See, okay. I'm hearing all my Arlen material is in Biloxi, so I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. All right, so I even have it in the outline. Just asking you, was the private investigator helpful? I guess the answer would be no.
No, I'd say it was a big joke. They just took Mother and Tom's money. If you ask me, they just believed Mother and Tom.
I agree with you, and your family would not be the first one to give money out to a private investigator and get nothing in return. All right. Moving on to this. We don't like to do rumors. I already said that a little 10 minutes ago in this interview, but I think given the number of them that I am going to ask you about, what are some of these rumors? You already talked about this cartel rumor. Is this something that came up recently, or is this something that's been going on for years, or what?
It's always been a speculation for years, based on the narrative that I read that Papa Tom wrote 20 years ago. But different rumors. The one thing, Ed, that I have discovered in my looking back into all this is that all the rumors, no matter who did what to Arlen, they always end with him being tossed, his body being put in a well.
Yeah.
Now, West Texas, all kinds of oil wells, gas wells, water wells. It's never specified. It's just always that his body was thrown in a well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's off of Farm Road 669. Sometimes it's off the road in the south part of the county. But every rumor is always his body was put in a well.
Okay. I will tell both of you, I don't mind saying this on the record. Heard a few rumors like that about disappearance. I'm not going to name any specifically here on the record, but I hear about this. I think what both of you have to realize is that I can't think of one missing persons case ever. I'm not saying it's never happened, but being that one doesn't come to my mind, being that this is my work, it is so rare to find a missing person in a well that I would tell both of you, even on the record, my guess is that is not where Arlen is. Given the percentage chance of that being true is probably less than 1%. To be honest with you, that doesn't mean it's but you hear these things.
But see, I'm logical.
Yeah.
I'm practical. I know what the water well is 2 to 3 inches. I don't know. I've seen oil field pipes. I don't know how they could put his body in a well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But that has always been the rumor. And then they seasoned it.
Where do you think, being that this rumor popped up, do you even know who started this rumor? Once again, it might be true, but do you even know where the story started?
No, sir, I don't.
Don't know where the story started. Did Arlen have any Hispanic friends, any Mexican friends that have ever been able to be tracked down?
No, sir. Again, I was not out there.
Yeah, that's not popped at any time over the last 20 years.
No.
Okay. Any proof, for example, if you brought it up earlier that he might have been a drug mule for them, any proof that he had frequent trips back and forth to Mexico?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right. Did he speak Spanish?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Absolutely not. Okay. All right.
I don't think I grew up out there. No.
Okay. All right. So we got any other rumors? Once again, we usually don't do this, but there are quite a few regarding Arlen. Any other rumors that you would like to bring up at this time?
No. That's the only ones I know. It's always ends up with him being put in a well.
Okay. All right. And I have it in the outline. We already, there was to just pass along to both of you and the listeners. Dawn Williams and I did talk about this military guy that Arlen seemingly had gotten to know, and I know what his name is, but I'm not going to make it public. I think that I know Cindy, this is the first time you and I are talking on this interview, but of course Lori and I have spoken a few times. I think maybe in an email if I haven't, but I will give the name to you off the record of what this guy's name is. But Dawn Williams did track this military guy down. I guess he was a Marine, and the listeners and both of you should know that the guy did not have a very good alibi for the night of Arlen's disappearance. He was, Don could not rule him out as possibly being involved in Arlin's disappearance simply because this guy could not give Don an alibi which could be verified. And of course, we're not talking in 2023 terms. We're going back to 2003, 2004 when Don was actually on the job. This guy told him something, but Don could not verify it. Doesn't mean it was a lie. It's just that Don could not verify it. So there's that. So he kind of goes along. This kind of goes along with these other people that we've mentioned who have alibis, but also Don could not verify their alibis either. But what he did tell me, he did speak to and Jerry Mann, when interviewed by Don Williams, Don told me that Jerry was so scared that he, how do I want to put this in PG terms? He crapped himself literally while in the chair talking to Don Williams about Arlin's disappearance. Have you?
Oh my goodness.
You've not heard that before?
Yeah, again, I don't remember when or where.
Yeah. That's.
I don't know the fellow. Could
Yeah.
be some kind of a creep.
Yeah, but that is what Don Williams told me regarding his questioning of Jerry Mann back at that time. Of course, we're going now back to the time of Arlin's disappearance. And Don did tell me, we're not going to go on the record with this, but Don did tell me his own belief was what happened and who was responsible. But he did say that he did not think that necessarily had anything to do with Arlin's disappearance, but he thought that Arlin knew, or that knew what happened to Arlin.
Yeah,
So these are all things that he told me.
Yeah, I heard him talking to my mother about that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
How?
Please.
Well, the conclusion was how tough it has been. And
Yeah.
my answer is it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We just want to, Arlin, that's all Mother wanted was for us to find him before she died so we could lay him to rest. And we missed that window of opportunity. So.
Did your mother? The listeners should know I did get to talk to your mother first of all before I started talking to Lori, but I don't think that she ever did pass along to me her own personal belief as to what happened to him. Did she ever pass along her personal belief to either of you? If you want to say what that was, you can do that. You don't have to. But did she ever tell both of you what she thought happened to Arlin?
Well, I think she believed it was a hate crime.
She did. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Arlin is gay. Other people know about it. They don't like that. And that is why he went missing. Okay. Moving on, is there, so let's just stick with that. The last 20 years, obviously, being that you didn't know about the private investigator report till recently, you even, both of you noted that Arlin might have been dealing with some rough characters back then. You kind of kept your distance. What is it now like in 2023, now that your mother is gone, of course, you don't have to take on that responsibility, but what is it like now knowing that if anything's going to get done, that you may have to be responsible for it, being that your mother's now gone?
It's going to be me. I will be the one with the police, talking to the police. Cindy's already told you, and Cecil, they do not want to get involved because they fear for their safety.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't lived in Big Spring since I was 18 years old. I was not worried about it. I'm not afraid. So I will be the one that continues to spearhead whatever is done. It will be me handling it.
Mm-hmm. Should ask you this. After that night, of course, both of you should know that we've covered at least a few disappearances. In fact, one of them that just comes to mind happened in Texas. T.J. Murray, who was out at a bar and was drunk. In fact, he hit a woman before he left the bar. And he left the bar by himself, never to be seen again. His family also believes that foul play was involved in his disappearance. So we've covered some disappearances like this, but were any searches ever done around that area? Maybe you can even explain, is this bar kind of in a downtown area of Big Spring, or is it out on the outskirts? Are there any woods around? What can you say?
Okay, it's in the downtown area, and no, there's no woods at all. It's asphalt desert out there.
Okay.
I don't know whether they searched around the immediate area. I do know that they searched in other places around the county with cadaver dogs, and but I'm sure Don Williams told you all that to no avail. They didn't find anything ever.
I should also ask you this, being that he was, as a possibility, this is the reason I'm going to ask you this. How far away did Arlin live from the bar? So let's just throw the idea out there that he knows he's drunk, he knows he shouldn't be drinking, even though he had these DUIs in the past, and he decides to walk. How long of a walk would it have been?
Say 6 to 8 blocks.
So not too far.
Not far at all.
All right. So we leave open the possibility that he maybe decided to walk home, maybe got picked up by somebody or something. Okay. Okay. NamUs. Everybody should know that Arlin is not on NamUs, and this is something that maybe I should call Don Williams back and ask him why the police never put Arlin on the NamUs site, which is a federal database for missing people. Did you two even know about NamUs before I brought it up? Lori? Never heard of it. Okay. That is something you really, really should put at the top of your list to get done. You can do it yourself. You can contact them. But I will tell you, most of the time, it's the police who do that. And in fact, in some states, they already have laws now that the police are required to put missing people on NamUs. Because in some states, it's not the law. I don't know what the law is in Texas now. But that is something surely that should be put on your to-do list. And where my question is going is, at any time, and has DNA ever been taken of anybody in your family in case remains are found?
Mother provided them with his dental records and his hairbrush or toothbrush, or they've been provided with DNA,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right, because usually a lot of times what they do is someone will come out to your house and just take a swab of and collect it. Sometimes they do it that way too. Once a missing person is missing for a while, but that should be at your. Please.
Mother might have given a sample. I don't know.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. So that's something certainly you want to make sure on. Get him on NamUs and verify that they have a usable DNA sample. Because DNA samples could be relevant no matter if this is a foul play or not. And the last thing you want is remains to be found in the Big Spring area or anywhere else, and they be Arlin's, but they have no scientific way of, proving it. That's the last thing you want. So I would really double check that, as you move forward from this interview that we're doing on October 7th, 2023. Why don't we now talk about, do you have a Facebook site set up, website, anything like that, anything in social media? If so, why don't you list it right now?
Okay. There is a Facebook page. It's called Where's Arlin? WHERE_S Arlin, ARLIN ? And then there was some billboards, but I think the billboards were taken down. There's one for the month of July, one for the month of August in Big Spring. But the Facebook page is public. It's open to the public. People can post to it. They can comment. And also, there's Crime Stoppers. There's a reward. The Big Spring Howard County Crime Stoppers. That's also a Facebook. And Arlin is posted on that. Arlin is on the Texas Missing Persons. Not on Nameless, but there is a Texas
that's
Missing
right.
Persons site.
It's different, but you're right, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And do you two manage that, the website, or the Facebook page? Do you two manage it yourselves?
I am an administrator, but Melody Phillips set it up, and then I have a friend who is very technologically astute in Biloxi that she also moderates it.
Great. Okay, so people you know decently well are people who are also moderators.
Right. Now, have you spoken with Melody? Melody was Arlen's lifelong friend.
I've not. I don't know if you've given me a phone number to her, but if this episode's not going to be coming out, I don't think till the 20th. So that's like 2 weeks from now. So I still have some time. If you would like me to talk to her, I will do that. If you email me her number, I will gladly call her.
Yes. And Melody, it was through Melody, some friend of Melody that knows you.
Is that right?
How we even, yes. Anyway.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I have a, it's now that I know that I have a melody that tunes into my YouTube show on Monday nights. I wonder if that's the same melody.
She lives in Fort Worth. I'll just share her contact with you.
Yeah.
When we get off the phone.
Great.
Okay?
Yes, please.
Because I know she was thrilled whenever I told her we had an interview scheduled with you. So, again, when we finish, and we'll talk about the PI report. Okay?
Yes. All right. And so why don't you give the Facebook page out? Where's Arlin is the name of it.
Yes.
Facebook.
And it's got all the newspaper clippings have been uploaded to it from all the years. Photos of Arlin, mother's obituary. And in the previous podcast, like the local radio station in Big Spring did a podcast. And two different TV stations, one out of Midland, one out of Odessa, did a little brief story. That's also uploaded to it.
Okay. Lori and Cindy, any final words before we complete this interview?
I just want to tell you thank you, Ed, for looking into this for us.
You're very welcome. It's what I do. I do the best reporting I can. I try to ask the best questions that I can. And this is we're just passing 20 years. This is one that's due to be solved. It's especially since it seems there are some suspects. I'm not sure what to think. Could be foul play, maybe so, maybe not. Maybe somebody that's never been named could be the suspect here. But my job is just to cover the disappearances as thoroughly as well as can be done. And so I thank you. I thank you. I thank you both for being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you, Ed. Let me know when it's an air so I can tune in.
I will do that. You're very welcome. I will do that. And that was my October 7th, 2023 interview with the sisters of Arlin Bynum, Lori McCampbell and Cindy Sturdisant. I thank them both for joining me and all of you on this episode. Before I go into my summation, a few things. I checked to see where Arlin lived at the time, and the sisters were absolutely correct. He lived just a few blocks from the bar. I think Google said 0.6 miles. And along that route, there are no rivers or woods which could be hiding his body all this time. In fact, looking at the map, Arlin would have had to have gone very out of his way if he ended up in an area that could not be easily searched. Although we have to remember we all thought the same about Bo Man, and we all ended up being wrong. Also, as you heard in the interview, I spoke to Don Williams, who was responsible for Arlin's case at one time. Yes, he said a person he questioned soiled himself during an interview. Dawn believes foul play occurred, although Dawn did not believe the guy who soiled himself was the mastermind. Importantly, though, despite Dawn questioning many people, not one person ever saw Arlin leave the bar, even though some saw him sitting outside the bar alone. In addition, there was no proof that Arlin arranged to meet anyone that night. Still, Dawn thinks foul play occurred. This is the final item before my summation, and this is regarding the PI report mentioned in the interview. Given that it was poorly done, and the family now believes they got ripped off, I will not be making it public. However, this further proves what I've said for a while now for disappearances. Private investigators are mostly useless. Now, my summation. I'm hoping that many of you have become educated enough on Unfound's disappearances to recognize that Arlin's case is very much like TJ Murray's, Justin Gaines's, and Kevin Newen's. All men who went to bars, left, and were never seen again. Additionally, like Arlin's, all of their cases have unsubstantiated stories that involve foul play. TJ running into a group after he hit a woman in that bar. Justin after he allegedly got into a car with an unknown woman. And Kevin getting into some fight with a group in the bar parking lot. The key point about all of them is unsubstantiated, meaning there is no proof, no facts, no evidence to support the foul play ideas in any of those disappearances. I'm not saying foul play didn't happen. I'm saying there is no scientific reason or even a statistical reason to believe foul play happened in those disappearances. Then you may be asking the question, if there's no proof foul play occurred in these disappearances, then how do the foul play stories get started? Well, these are my opinions on that topic, having done this job for over 7 years, and they are in no particular order. The public really can't believe people just walk off, so something else must have happened. The public is greatly affected by how crime is portrayed in entertainment, like movies and TV. Our creative minds can't help but try to fill in the blanks when answers aren't forthcoming. Our minds love drama, and foul play is more drama-filled than no foul play. The public wants to believe that all missing people are victims, when really a decent percentage of them caused their own disappearances. There are people who create stories out of nothing for the morbid fun of it. Families know the media pays more attention to murders than anything else. Are those enough reasons? I could go on. And maybe most glaringly, perceptually, there doesn't seem to be any downside for everyone to believe a disappearance is a murder. Meaning, theoretically, it's better to overstate the disappearance than understate it, making unproven allegations and spouting off large conspiracies. That way, everyone stays on their toes. The problem, of course, is that portraying every single disappearance as foul play when there's no proof of it only makes solving the actual non-foul play disappearances even harder. And hey, those ones matter too. This is why at Unfound, we portray all disappearances as they are, not as the guests wish them to be. We let the facts fall where they may without pushing you, the listeners, in any particular direction. There is another point, and this has to do with the men whose names were muted out of the interview and the stories they told. Stories aren't leads. Just because someone says something doesn't make it true. Or, as I've said to more than one listener who has emailed me about this topic, people say a lot of things. If people cannot provide anything other than their word, then it's not worth much. Why? Because alleged witnesses lie about disappearances. Prisoners lie about disappearances. As I recently described on the live show, police lie about disappearances. Families lie about disappearances. And not me, but yes, many people in true crime lie about disappearances. So, rumor has it. If you'd like to hear and read my further analysis on this topic, and of course, Arlin Bynum's disappearance, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast to sign up and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. Right now, while you are in your podcast platform, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, give Unfound a 5-star review, a thumbs up, whatever that platform allows. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've just finished this episode of Unfound.